13. You have 20 minutes to present your solution to the judges. You will be given a warning when 5 and 2 minutes remain. After 20 minutes, the presentation will be stopped immediately and no information will be considered once the time has lapsed. Following the presentation, there will be a 10-minute question and answer. You will be given a warning when 2 minutes remain. The question and answer will be stopped after 10 minutes. You may begin when you're ready.
Hello, everybody. My name is Margarita. This is Mia, Katya, and Jessica, and we're Team Kilo. As you know, today we're going to be presenting about Leader Corporation, the Japanese manufacturer of electric motors. They're leaders in their industry, but since it's 2018, we want to develop something new. Technologies are moving, everything is moving, and they want to keep up with everything now. So we decided to go and analyze their new project, which is Foresight. Foresight is a platform that is designed to detect and diagnose all the different issues that their products might have. And this is not just going to help Nidec, but it's also going to help the customer, which is the service industry. But by doing this, we have also encountered two main challenges. So our first challenge is going to be, where should we position Foresight? Because we do not want to alienate the service industry. We want them to be active, to keep them involved, and we don't want to make them believe that we're not caring about them anymore. So how should we do this? And the second main issue is data ownership. So who owns the data that is going to be collected by the platform, and who actually owns it after we could sell it, but who owns it after that?
And before we move into our specific recommendations for the company, we want to talk a little bit about the industrial Internet of Things, and particularly the benefits and the risks that this poses, and how our solutions will hopefully be able to mitigate those risks and take advantage of the unique benefit that those systems offer. So the biggest threats that we can see is that as we see things become more interconnected, where you can get diagnostic reports, we lose that face-to-face connection that some customers tend to prefer. Specifically, we've isolated that there can be a generational gap. So older customers might not be as comfortable with this move towards more technology connecting all of their systems, whereas younger customers might be more on board. Now, we've also realized that the IIoT is definitely great for growing businesses, specifically mature businesses that may have petered out a little bit. So we really want Foresight technology and our solutions to be able to take advantage of that. Now, one of the biggest ways that we're going to do this is by, instead of being reactive and reacting to situations when products malfunction or when they're close to near the end of their lives, we want to be proactive and we want to be predictive. And that was very important for us in generating our solutions for the company to take. Now, a really quick note about how Foresight uses the industrial Internet of Things. First of all, it collects data about abnormalities with heat or vibration. Then it uploads that data via a gateway to the cloud, where that data is then stored and aggregated.
The geographic areas and regions in which Nidec will be able to present their materials depends a lot on the privacy laws in those areas. In Europe and most of the world, privacy laws are mostly regulated concerning personal information that can be tied directly to a specific individual. So mostly data collected such as vibration and temperatures will not be affecting the company as much because they are not able to be linked to a specific individual. But in California, they have passed industrial Internet of Things legislation that actually does say that consumers have to consent for their information to be shared and collected, and so it's very likely that this kind of legislation will be passed worldwide, as California is typically a leader in that kind of legislation. So for our two recommendations, we have our motor positioning, in which the company will be selling the motors as usual, but with the sensors attached, and the sensors will send information to the manufacturers, who will be able to improve their processes and their products so that their brand image will continue to stay strong. But our second recommendation is the one that we're really excited about. We recommend that the company positions itself as a sensor provider, so the sensors will be taken out of the motors and sold separately so that they can be used in many different kinds of products.
All right, so let's dive into the first solution, that is the motor positioning. So I think we all, as businessmen here and women, agree that the key in our efforts is to be able to make our customers understand the benefit that we can provide for them. And I think that's where Nidec is lacking a little bit of effort right now. If we're able to communicate with our customers, we brainstormed a little bit, panel discussions and maybe focus groups would be helpful. We could be able to understand really what they're expecting from us and maybe get to a point where we're able to see them, like show them the benefit and demonstrate how our sensors are able to give them information that could be helpful for them. Some specific scenarios in which we thought this could be helpful is in the research and development. Our information that we gather and provide for them can easily help them have less expenses on the research and development and hopefully help them, for example, in their creation of their design so they are better able to create their machines in a way that they take in our motor and collaboratively work with us to provide a better end product to the end user. Other than that, I think it's really important to remember that the preservation of the service jobs of these middle companies is something that this solution is gonna keep in mind, because maybe a little bit of training would be necessary to help them be able to better understand how to use the data collected by the sensors, but the focus of their job is probably going to be switched a little bit, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to be needed. And overall, as Mia showed it in the beginning, the improved company image is also something that we should highlight here to the customers, because that's probably what they're really interested about. If they're able to satisfy their customers, they're probably going to stay on top of the market. So by being reactive versus proactive, I think we're better able to see the benefit and show them and probably get them on our side on board with the sensor application idea. So how exactly are we going to do this? Let's talk about the plan. We got not much time, so let's just dive into it. We are going to offer a bundle that allows corporate customers to pay an additional fee and get information from the sensors. This information is going to be given to them in like raw data, or also as a friendly user interface for managers to be able to see visually graphs and different pie charts to be able to kind of understand how motors and their products in general develop. And I think this is very key. And if we're able to explode the idea that this can give to them, we're going to be able to get them on board with the idea. This monthly fee is going to be also added a cancellation fee if they don't implement your product for more than a year. And this is just because we need to be able to make sure that we're covering our production costs. That way we're not diving into any production of a sensor motor that is not going to be profitable for the company. And as we know, we expect the battery of the motor to last about 1.5 years, since it's going to be constantly collecting information of how these motors work, and then a maintenance fee whenever this battery needs to be changed, just to make sure that we keep them up to date with the latest technology that NIDA can provide for them.
A research company actually determined that 70% of customers are willing to share personal information if it's going to serve them better. And also a dollar spent on data collection actually translates to $13.01 in profits for the company. So the data collected using this system would actually let companies reduce their R&D budgets by a lot. So profits would be shared by both the middle companies, the manufacturers, and NIDEC. Like Katya mentioned, this will also help to protect service jobs so that the middlemen won't feel threatened by NIDEC, which they might with the current system. Currently, data storage is decreasing in cost, but with limited availability of rare earth minerals, it's possible that the cost would increase in the future, which would make storage and dispersion of this data very expensive for the company. Also, if the companies feel threatened by the storage of data by these companies, it's possible that companies would choose not to use these motors in their product anymore. So using a privacy contract, we could ensure that the companies don't feel like we are holding something over them by storing their data and potentially sharing it with another company, so they would be sure to be able to still be collecting their own profits securely.
All right, now we're going to talk about the second solution, which is what we're really excited about. And we took a little bit different approach. It's a more adventurous, let's say, solution. So we actually want NIDEC to enter the sensor market and be a sensor system provider. So how are we going to do this? We also think it's great because, as you can see from the graph, in the past 3 years, there has been a slightly increase in the sensor market. And we think that with Foresight, they can actually take advantage of this. And we know that it looks very slight, but in the future it's going to develop even more. So we think that with some help maybe from outside engineers and outside experts they can actually improve foresight and they can sell it with their own system. We are going to sell either the system by itself or the motor and the sensor with it. And also it's great because Nidec currently has the current pressure and liquid leak sensors, so they can definitely improve the supply chain that they have, but they can, at the beginning, develop those three that they have and then go for something else. And we think that this solution is great also because there's two challenges that we talked about at the beginning. Have pretty good solutions because we have a minimal exclusion of the service industry. Because by selling the system or the sensor, the motor and the system, we can actually give them an help because if you sell the sensor, you can attach it to another motor, it doesn't really matter. But you can attach it and then they're gonna know with the data that we sell them if the product is gonna have some issues, so they can call their end customer and tell them in a week somebody's gonna come and tell you and fix the whatever product they have bought. So this is not just gonna help us, it's not gonna just help the service industry, but it's also gonna help the end customer. And we also think this is great because there's gonna be a stronger customer relationship with the service industry that we're selling to, and we can also market directly to them our product. And also we have companies are gonna be paying the monthly fee to receive the data that we collect. At the beginning, I guess we can just give it to them and then they decide how to analyze it, but in the future we could also analyze it and then give it to the customers. And we think that by doing this, of course, we're gonna need a marketing plan for the sensor itself, but Nidec is gonna, at the beginning, own the data and then sell it to the customer, but still having the ownership of it.
Now, when it comes to our actual plan for how we want Nidec to reposition themselves, we think that the most important step is for Nidec to really reach out to its customer bases and figure out what kind of interest there is. In particular, we think it would be really beneficial to reach out to people that aren't customers yet, in particular smaller companies, so we can kind of get a feel before we present it to our existing customer base. Now, one such company that we've thought of as a potential option is Tiger Corporation. Now, they're also based in Japan, but they have operations in the United States, China, and Taiwan, which are all areas in which Nidec currently operates. So we think that this, by going for smaller companies first, seeing how they feel, taking their feedback, and then presenting it to our existing customers, it reduces some of the risk or the chance that our suggestions wouldn't go over as well. Now, for what we're offering, as we've mentioned a little bit earlier, it's going to be either the sensor by itself or the motor and the sensor. So the customer is going to get to choose which one they want. So this gives a lot more choice to that middleman so that they really get to pick what they're interested in from us. Now, for the payment or the data plan, as we said, it's going to be through a monthly fee, so they'll have to pay us monthly to receive this data. And then once again, we will also see that if they buy in bulk or they buy the motor and the sensor, then we will do applicable discounts to make it worthwhile and to show them that we really support their business. And then once again, we will also have the cancellation fee.
All right, let's talk about some fact that we found really interesting, and that's the cost of the production of sensors. As Nidec workers already know, the cost of creating the sensor is probably decreasing, and it's expected to decrease even more. Like presently, on 2004, the production of the sensor was about $1.30, and that's expected to decrease in 2020 to 0.38 cents. So that shows you a little bit of how profitable the market and how competitive it could turn out to be, but at the same time, with the increasing need for data, as we all know, the battle now is in the mind, and data has extreme power to help you accomplish a lot more deals that you're right now. With the increasing need of data, we consider this as a very, very profitable and positive diversion of what we that Nidec usually currently does. It's also important to keep in mind on the cost of implementation. You businessmen probably know more than we do about how whenever you have a plan and you actually implement it, there ends up to be a lot more cost than you expected them to be, but we came up with a list of potential costs that we need to take into account when analyzing this proposal. The first one is the cost of the production of individual sensors. So that would probably require a little bit more research and development because the way they currently operate is very different than what they would have to be in order to be attached to any other motor as an external plus of the operating machine. So that's probably going to have a little bit of higher cost for Nidec, but we think it's definitely worth it. Then probably one of the biggest expenses also is going to be the rebranding of of Nidec's brand. Currently, it's in the mind of consumers as a motor company, but that doesn't mean that it needs to stay that way. Ships on ports are safe, but that doesn't mean that they need to stay there. They're not meant to stay in ports. So rebranding the way Nidec works and operates to be placed in the mind of consumers as a sensor company also, I think, has a lot of potential, but that will require a lot of cost. And then the software design to be able to provide this information to the middleman in a more friendly way so that they can actually make managerial decisions based off of it. Data storage, as Mia mentioned previously shortly, it could be a lot more expensive. Currently, it has a cost of around $880,000 a year for 40 terabytes. And while that can be higher or lower, we think that this is something that our decision-making people need to take into account in order to decide whether or not they want to implement this project.
Okay, so now when it comes to the major benefits of this plan. Now, one of the best parts of this plan is that it allows us to use the Foresight technology, just not with motors, but with plenty of other applications. And that really allows Nidec to diversify its current offerings. So they can take what it already knows and what we've already put a lot of our research cost in, but to apply it in different ways. Now, we also think a big benefit of this plan is it gives Nidec accessibility to valuable data. In particular, with data being very powerful, we can see if there are potential opportunities to either expand, to fix a product. It gives us a lot of valuable information. But the best thing is that we also can share that information with our middleman, the service providers, so that by the end of the day, they can also reach out to the customers themselves and send a representative. So this is a sort of three-way positive impact that really benefits every part of this sort of component. It benefits Nidec, it also benefits the middleman, and it also, by the end of the day, benefits the end customer, who doesn't have to wait for their product to break before it's fixed, who can have somebody take advantage and fix it for them. And then when it comes to data ownership, now this is a really big issue, and we think that Nidec should try to maintain ownership of the data, and then offer up some options so that the other companies can view the data, but they won't have the ultimate ownership of it. Now, as we mentioned earlier, privacy agreements are also really important. That way our customers don't feel that we're going to use their data to undermine them with maybe a potential competitor. So privacy agreements will also have to be very important for us as we move forward.
So although our team strongly feels that this is the best solution, there are certainly risks associated with this innovative approach, most significantly being the very large R&D budget that would be necessary to take the sensor out of the motor and make it an independent part that could be attached to any kind of motor to determine how efficient that motor is. Also, the rebranding might drive away pre-existing customers, and new privacy legislation, as I mentioned earlier, is very likely to become a much bigger deal. So like California has passed Internet of Things legislation, it's very likely that especially the European Union will follow soon and the rest of the United States. To mitigate these risks, we would be pursuing a rebranding strategy, or we would recommend pursuing a rebranding strategy for which the company would be a sensor provider, but also maintain its current operations to make sure that there's enough capital that they can continue to fund the R&D research with which they would diversify their portfolio.
So we have two solutions to two very complex problems. We've got a solution that's a lot more conservative and one that is significantly more innovative. And by the end of the day, we feel that if you're going to take a risk and you want to really move forward and propel the company forward, that normally the more innovative but potentially riskier solution is the best one. And we believe that this is a place where Nidec can really start to take the lead.
So do you have any questions for us?
Nice presentation. I really like that you didn't just stick with one strategy, okay? That you recognize that, yeah, there's a place for this on the motor, but then there's a whole other potential market out there that we could be working towards. In your comment about being able to take this sensor outside of the motor, yes, you know, we have it. It is a separate sensor, so we can. I don't know if you do that or not, but that's a great strategy. So I think you're dead on the strategy.
We weren't sure, we tried.
Did you take a look at this financially to see what type of a business this could turn into in terms
What
of?
we thought at the beginning when we were analyzing, we wanted to have like a perfect plan, but of course it was kind of hard because we didn't have all the prices we needed.
Mhm.
We found this sensor and the prices and decrease in 2004 and then in 2020 they're thinking about it's probably going to go down. But we also imagine that a 25 pounds sensor is probably going to be a little bit more complicated, and especially if we want to sell it to a customer without implementing the motor with it, it will need a little bit of development. But we really do believe, especially with the second option, that by entering the sensor market, they have more possibilities to like growth.
And adding on to that too, we did spend like 50% of our time during doing this research on trying to find this like financial values. Our original plan was to come up with an Excel spreadsheet that had like different simulated ideas and simulated scenarios in which you could have your investment recuperated like in less or more time. That was like unfortunately not, we couldn't finish that for time reasons and for lack of data information. But I did want to share that we looked really into the industry for sensors, and we found the current companies working there, because that should be something that we consider too. The size of the companies already in that industry before you get into it. You want to know your competition. Those firms are like smaller and less strongly established than Nidec is, we believe. So it wouldn't be hard for us to like come in like with a big force that Nidec already has in their other industry and just like establish themselves strongly on it.
Well, just some advice going forward. So you mentioned having the perfect plan. Whenever you're doing these new, you'll never have the perfect plan. I guarantee. But what it does by putting assumptions out there is it allows challenges.
Just have like
Okay,
milestones
so,
that you want to achieve.
then don't ever expect yourself or put the pressure on the
Yeah.
perfect plan. It's not
We are like
Yeah.
economic majors here, and we were like, we need to come up with a plan that has numbers on it. We need to be able to show profit margin. We need to be able to have a convincing evidence that this is going to work. And we were like kind of disappointed that we weren't able to provide that, but there's never a perfect scenario.
Yeah.
So
I guess that's also why the two solutions, because we
Yeah.
tried to, one that it was more approachable, that it's okay, we can do this, and the other one more, again, adventurous. So you try to enter something new, and even if we don't have numbers, we still believe that it was like the best idea to try to implement both.
So, just a scenario, I'm a customer of Nidec,
Oh,
and I'm paying for the motor,
Okay.
you know, and all the data is generated in my factory. So why is that you want to own the data? It's my data, it's my motor. So why do you want to own the data?
we believe that Nidec has a greater capacity moving forth to analyze the data to give you an end result that you're able to understand without worrying too much. We know that our customers have a lot of other issues to concentrate in, and if we're going to provide them with a service, we want to do it to the best of our ability. And by owning the data, that allows us to, through training and hiring and acquisition of companies that are able to manage this information and create reports, we would satisfy you a lot more as a customer by giving you a report that is a more solid resolution and a more solid platform in which you can operate from. So that's the main idea. And as we said, panel groups and focus groups are necessary to be able to put both of these ideas, and that's something that we definitely consider would be important. So having that information shared with customers and them sharing back their thoughts on it, I think it's very awesome. So thanks for bringing it up. I think it's definitely a concern that should be taken into account, but our train of thought when we offer it that way was so we can, down the road, provide a full service for them of analysis of their data based on motor, because at the end of the day, who really understands how the motor performs is probably needed.
A quick question on the second solution, you know, the sensor market is very commoditized. There are a lot of people who supply sensors. So why would you want to get into a commoditized market? And how do you differentiate yourself?
Well, I think that since there was like a slight increase, and it's true it's not a huge increase, but by actually maybe acquiring somebody that has expertise, it would be probably easier. But I think that expanding to a new market, it's always a great idea, especially because if it's something that we believe it's going to develop really fast. Technologies are really like running every day. So I think that expanding towards something that it's less motor but more like sensor would be the best idea for profit at the end of the day. Because I think that by like 2020, the prices are going to be lower because we're going to be able to develop amazing ways to actually make the sensor. So I think that we could be, like, NIDA could be a great competitor, especially because they're already known in the manufacturing industry. So I think that they could collaborate with their clients. And that's also why we decided to go for a smaller corporation like Tiger Corporation, because I think that by picking up the smaller, I guess, clients first, it's easier then to reach the bigger ones.
Because then we have proof of concept. And
Yeah.
And I think adding on to that, I'm like the passionate one of this group, and if you want a passionate answer, I think it would be why not. If you look at financial statements of NIDA, you can see that they've grown in the past years, and like if there's the if there are the resources to dive into this new market, and then they can explode the industry so that they can provide a service for their customers that's not seen right now or that could be done better. I think that there's no reason to hold back.
I want to follow up on something Shaker said, is that I'm just trying to get in my mind what the value proposition is here to the customer when you're going out there as both the first and the second solution here. If you're going to quantify the value proposition of the customer, you're saying, you give me the data and I'm going to help you. And he's saying, well, fine, I'll sell you my data. Why aren't you paying me for the data instead of me paying you to give me my data? Tell me how you're going to sell that value proposition when you're looking at customer in the eye across
Yeah.
the table.
I think that is what business is about, to go back and forth on the offer and get to a point where we both agree there's a competitive advantage from one of the sides. And I believe, we believe, that NIDA, being the motor producer, probably has a better capability to get to a point where we can understand the data of how the motor behaves, because that's, at the end of the day, what we work on, and analyze it and provide you with written managerial information that you can use to like take decisions. So I guess like the short answer to that is that we believe that NIDA probably knows better about motors, and you know more about how the machine works at the end. But motors and the core concept of it, I think it's developed, and the knowledge is owned by NIDA on that sense. So if you could argue back and forth who owns the data and whether or not you should have access to it more than we do, but I think if we were prevented from having the ownership of that data, we wouldn't be able to handle it in a way that we can put it in a format that's useful for you more than for us.
We talked about like the importance of knowledge, especially nowadays. So we were trying to think like, why would they want something like that? And so we discussed a lot about that, and we believe that knowledge is essential now. So we kind of wanted the customer to know that we have something they want and they need, and then just offer
Yeah,
it.
you're trying to monetize the data, but then that gets into a real tough discussion on the data and saying, what's it worth? And
Yeah.
even if the customer says, I'll pay you a fee, how do I know that I'm going to get a return on what I'm paying you, that you're going to lower my costs here? So.
I think Mia touched up on that a little bit, and can you just repeat the statistic that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, sure. 70% of customers are willing to spend, or they're willing to give up their personal data to receive a higher quality cost product. And for $1 of data collection, companies are able to earn profits of $13. So that's a really big difference. And for products that would use these sensors, they would actually be able to improve their products, so they would have higher customer rankings and be able to sell more highly reliable products to the end consumer.
Which I think is their big goal, is to really make sure that they can reach that end consumer before a crisis happens and their machine is broken. And
Because-
our data would be able to do that.
Yeah, if you make the NIDA motor and sensor indispensable for company success, that's how you monetize the data and the sensor.
Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your time.